Coming up on today's Locked On Dodgers, the Dodgers add 5 players to the 40-man roster. We take a question from a listener, and I talk about a middle infielder that I think the Dodgers should make as their secondary asset if Seeger doesn't sign. That's what's on tap, so make sure to keep it Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. I'm Vince Samperio of Chavez Ravine Fiends here, and this is Locked On Dodgers. This is a daily podcast covering the Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. I'll be rolling solo this morning as, Jeff and I's schedules just didn't match up and got a lot to talk about, kind of. The Dodgers added 4 players to the 40-man roster, going to take on a question from a listener, and then talk about a middle infielder that can be the backup plan if Corey Seager doesn't stick around. But before all that, want to thank you for making us your first listen every single morning and remind you that we are available wherever podcasts are found and on YouTube, all for free. So go check it out, tell your friends about us, do all that good stuff. But let's get right into it. Only news from over the weekend. Jeff talked a little bit about it the other day of who they might add to the 40-man roster. The Dodgers ended up adding 5 players to the 40-man roster, which is now a full 40. So there definitely will be some other moves coming here in the coming weeks. But the Dodgers added James Outman, an outfielder, infielders Jakua Maya, Leonard, and Vivas, and right-hander Michael Grove. Now, a couple surprises here in Leonard and Vivas. They're on the younger side. They're probably at least 2-3 years from helping out the Dodgers. I'm not sure if they'll end up surviving the offseason on the 40-man roster, just knowing that the 40-man roster is full and they only have 3 starting pitchers and no third catcher. But, 2 guys that are expected to develop into top prospects, Vivas and Leonard. The Dodgers obviously wanted to make sure that no team snatched them up. They are already in the Dodgers' top 30 prospects at 18 and 19 on MLB Pipeline, respectively. But guys, probably that nobody really expected, or that not a lot of people expected to get added, but they're there. They may be ones that can sneak by and survive. They're still looking at the Dodgers 40-man roster. I counted about 5 guys that would probably have to be moved if they were to make some decisions. There's some guys that are, Luke Raley. I don't know if he survives another year or if he would survive. Assuming that they, need spots and they don't make trades or whatever. The casualties of this 5-man added was Billy Mckinney and Zack were both designated for assignment. Haven't heard any updates on them yet. So I would imagine, I'm not sure if any of them will get picked up, claimed, or if not, if they would go sign somewhere else. Rex is, he came up with the Dodgers a handful of times, wasn't able to get his first major league hit in 10 at-bats, and a guy who had kind of climbed up the ranks for the Dodgers, but at this point, he's a 28-year-old outfielder. We're not sure entirely if he can hit in the majors, and, maybe he'll benefit from going to a team that can root for him. We've seen Dodger players, guys just like him that, right on the outskirts of the 40-man roster for the Dodgers, go find some success somewhere else. So that's possible. Billy McKinney, we all remember the Billy McKinney project, and probably we'll talk about Billy McKinney for no days longer than today. So that's how it is. In terms of the other guys added to the 40-man roster, James Outman, he's a 24-year-old. He had a pretty solid year, and he really made his name for himself here in the last couple weeks at the Arizona Fall League. He had a couple nice defensive plays out there in the outfield. He had a 994 OPS in 20 games for the Desert Dogs and was in the Fall Stars game. Made a nice play in that game as well. So somebody that could maybe contribute as a 4th outfielder as early as 2022. Jakua Maya is a name that's been around for a while. He's the Dodgers' number 14 prospect on MLB Pipeline, middle infielder. Struggled hitting in 2021, but really had a nice bounce back here in the Arizona Fall League. Hit 320 with a few home runs, and his value really comes from defense. He's a really good shortstop and can play second base if need be as well. Another guy that could contribute as early as 2022, especially considering or thinking about what happens with Gavin Lux or what happens with the second base position in general, what happens with Chris Taylor, what happens, Zach McKinstry can't hit anymore. Do they prefer, a solid defender over a decent defender in McKinstry? So somebody that can for sure find some time, or would be, a trade chip if the Dodgers decide to go the trade route this offseason instead of free agency. So we'll see what happens. The other one that maybe interesting in the sense that he doesn't have good numbers, so maybe nobody would pick him up, but also not that interesting because he's been known to have some really good stuff and it just hasn't quite worked out. He hasn't been able to put it together. But Michael Grove was added to the 40-man roster. Last year he struggled. 7.86 ERA in 71 innings in Double A. He did have 88 strikeouts in those 71 innings, so he has the stuff. He just hasn't quite been able to put it together. He really hasn't put it together at all at any point in the minors. He's struggled the last couple of years. But as we've seen with the Dodgers, if they think you have the stuff, they think, they probably have a way they think you can help you. And maybe now on the 40-man roster, heading into spring training, assuming there's a normal spring training, he'll be able to work with the major league side, and maybe they have some tweaks for him in order to untap that potential. But if not, then I'm sure they'll find a way to move on, and maybe even if they designate him for assignment, if he does struggle, the Dodgers don't think he's there, he might not get picked up anyway. So we're not going to know what's going to happen with these guys probably for a while. Some of these guys, like I said, might end up being in trades or might end up getting designated for assignment if need be. Although, like I said, I think the Dodgers roster has some areas right now where they could, Trevor Bauer's technically on the 40-man roster. I don't expect him to be on the 40-man roster during the season, whether that's because he's suspended or he's not on the team anymore. You got guys like Darian Nunez, even Evan Phillips, Andrew Vasquez, who, were picked up this year, so could be dropped this year as well, or not Nunez, but the other two. You got even Sheldon Noisy. I don't know if the Dodgers are going to keep him around much longer. He's on the 40-man roster still. You got Luke Raley and Matt Beatty, who I don't know if he's going to stick around this year as well if he doesn't get traded. So there's still room, and obviously the Dodgers, if they're bringing in guys, they're going to be guys that are either going to be in their starting rotation or guys like Corey Seager or someone like that. So they have room on the 40-man roster if need be. So that's what was added. The Rule 5 draft will be coming up. We'll see if anybody gets taken. There was some guys that weren't protected that will be available. We saw 2 guys get taken from the Dodgers last year, Brett DeGuice, who didn't have a great year for the Rangers, but was in the major leagues, and Sheffield, who did have a pretty good year for the Rockies at 3.38 ERA there out of their bullpen. So we'll see what happens, but that's all the news on that front. We're gonna take a question from a listener, so make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Let's talk about DirecTV Stream. Does this sound familiar? You've got one device that lets you catch the game live, another that lets you stream your favorite shows. You're watching sports highlights on your phone. You got a lot going on, and DirecTV Stream can help you out. They have a nice, easy way to get all the entertainment you love without the hassle, and a great way to finally get your TV together. DirecTV Stream brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes and no need to buy another device ever again. And the best part, there's no annual contract. So get rid of the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. Just head over to directtv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package. Want to remind you to make Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day every weekday morning. We're here for you. Tell your friends and family about us as well. We enjoy all and any promotion, so we appreciate that. No other news from the Dodgers front this weekend. No other news really in general. The December 1st deadline for the new CBA is coming up, and it doesn't look like they will have it resolved by then. So after that, December 2nd, players won't be able to be signed or anything, so we might not get too many rumors. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, just a quick update on there. Rob Manfred did say that time is not on their side in terms of the December 2nd one, but he seemed less concerned about that deadline and more concerned about not losing any games, which would mean, I guess, they could have till early February to make a decision. So we'll see what happens there. But we're going to move over, and we still got questions from the mailbag call the other day. So I'm going to take one from our friend Alex _7. Alejandro asks, if you're Jeff, it'll be me this time, for the GM of the Dodgers, do you re-sign Corey Seager and let Cody Bellinger walk, or vice versa? What about Trey Turner? Do you sign him and let Seeger walk? Now, this is a good question. The second part of this question might answer itself if Seeger walks. Well, I guess in this hypothetical, I decide, but if Seeger walks, Trey Turner is available. Between Trey Turner and Seeger, I probably would sign. I don't know. Knowing what I know, Trey Turner might be the better move long term. Um, he brings a lot of value in speed. He probably still has a few years where his speed is going to be a valuable asset. He can play both mid infield spots now that we know, although he would probably prefer to play shortstop. He's a guy at the top of the lineup, batting champion this year. He's a guy um, that just, he's just kind of there. They're both similar players in that they're just kind of there. They're good. They're very, very good players and, very low maintenance. They just, put them in the lineup wherever they're slotted and let them go to work. Corey Seager, the hitting obviously is the big sell for Seager. If he can hit, he can roll out of bed and hit 300 for you for the most part. But he has, and not to knock him, but there's been injury concerns. Nothing that's long term. Nothing that's been like, oh, he keeps getting hurt this way. He's had obviously some different injuries that just happen to be unfortunate. The other thing for me with Seager is, if you don't think he's capable at shortstop, or if you don't think he'll be capable at shortstop after a couple more years, I don't know if the move to third base generally suits him. Based on what we've seen him do at shortstop, the balls that are hit hard at him, he doesn't handle very well. Third base would be a lot more balls getting hit hard at you. I don't know if it's reaction time. I don't know if he just I'm not sure, but to me, it seems like third base doesn't suit him as much. I don't know if you can just say, "Oh yeah, he can play third base." We've seen guys make that transition and do well. Cal Ripken moved over back in the day, which who he always gets compared to because of how tall he is. Manny Machado's made that move to third base and looked really good. But with Seager, I don't know if it's guaranteed that he's going to be a good third baseman. He backhands a lot of balls. You can't do that as much at third base, although Justin Turner does do it. But it's a lot of reaction time. And, I do think you'd have to put in a good amount of work in order to become a competent third baseman. So with Trey Turner, I know he can play short and second. And I know in a pinch he can play outfield. So you're already adding versatility there. Like I said, the speed's going to be an asset. The verbiage or the saying is speed don't slump, although that's been proven wrong, but at the very least. The other part too is you think about postseason. Seager's had some bad postseasons, but he's had a really good postseason where he led the Dodgers to a World Series title, NLCS and World Series MVP. Trey Turner has won a championship, but hasn't really performed that great in the postseason overall in general. Whether you're someone like Jeff who doesn't think that that's an innate trait of performing in the clutch. But if you see a guy struggle enough times, maybe it's just different. Or when you're facing good pitching every single day, it's not as easy to be a good hitter, and sometimes that's the case. So, but my answer, I guess here, I would sign Trey Turner. I think he's going to be a little cheaper. I don't know if that's true or not, but I'd sign Trey Turner. And I love Corey Seager, but I just think Trey Turner, with the versatility and everything he brings, he's more of an asset to a team. And, I'll take that. In terms of Seager versus Bellinger, Now, this one's interesting. I think we got into it. I don't know if we got into this exact one, but we've got into similar things of this nature. And for me, I think it's Seeger. Seeger, as long as Seeger's healthy, he's going to hit. You know he's going to be a top hitter in the league. With Cody Bellinger, you're at this point you'd be paying for premium defense and hoping he can replicate what he's done in the past. And for big money, assuming the money's similar between them, I don't know if I want to pay that much for premium defense. You could find cheaper players that are more defenders that can't hit, and that's where it's at for me. In terms of Bellinger, yeah, he has MVP potential. He's already won an MVP. He's hit 47 home runs in a season. He's been a guy that can carry your offense, but he also has been a guy that can not do much. And I guess this is taking into consideration the 2021 season and how much stock you put into that, because we already saw him regress a little bit. 2017, one rookie of the year, was really great. 2018, he regressed. He was still a solid player. And like I said, a solid player like 2018 Bellinger with premium defense is still somebody that can make some good money here in Major League Baseball. But 2019 MVP, although a lot of people will say he had a really hot first half and then, just kind of maintained and cooled off in the second half, which, that happens as well, but he still won MVP. So 2020, not so great, had a couple big moments in the postseason, and that premium defense did help him out in the postseason that year. So, robbing the home run. And then 2021, obviously we know what happened in 2021. But can Bellinger be that guy in the postseason? I know that wasn't the Cody Bellinger that we know and love on offense in the postseason, but that's a Cody Bellinger that can get by and be a competent offensive player while also providing premium defense. Now, if he can default to that at all times, like let's just say he's struggling, he can default to 2021 playoff Bellinger. Now, that's a guy that is still very, a very good player, borderline all-star in this league. But, the majestic Cody Bellinger swing wasn't there in the postseason. He did hit that one home run, but it was, on a pitch way up there. It's a pitch that he never hit before. And that's the thing. If you lose the power with Bellinger, he still brings value on the bases, but can he turn into a stolen base guy? If that's the case, if he saps all his power, goes to 21 postseason Bellinger, hitting a lot more singles or working a walk, can he be a guy that steals you 30, 35, 40 bases a season? And that's the case with premium defense on top of that. Yeah, you that's still a guy you can go pay. Thing is, I'm not sure of that yet. And when it comes to paying somebody big money, I think the sure thing of this guy's going to hit regardless is more important than this guy is a premium defender. So in that sense, I would take Seeger. Although me personally right now, the either or for the Dodgers doesn't apply because they have the money. But I do think Cody Bellinger comes significantly cheaper than what Seager's going to get. If you can get Cody Bellinger 200 mil or less, that's a pretty solid deal. If Seager's going to command 200 million or more, then that's where you kind of decide, okay, what are we doing here? But long story short, I would take, if it's either or, I'd take Seager over Bellinger and Trey Turner over Seager. Realistically, the Dodgers can do all of it if they really want to. So that's up to them. All right, that's gonna do it for this. I'm gonna talk about a middle infielder that would be. It's a common, obvious name, but just talk a little bit more about the backup plan if Corey Seager doesn't end up signing. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers, and let's talk about Built Bar. Thanksgiving's coming up. You got all the good food and treats and plenty of them. But maybe you want a dessert that tastes good, that isn't so full of calories and sugar. And that's where Built Bar steps in. Built Bar is the new holiday dessert. Feast on something delicious and feel good about it. One slice of pie can get upward of 300 calories. That's the low end, and that's before you put on the whipped cream. Most Built Bars are only 130 calories with 4 or 5 grams sugar, plenty of protein, 4 to 5 grams net carbs. They taste great. They satisfy that sweet tooth, and they're good for you. Be the hero this Thanksgiving and bring Built Bars as an option for your meals. Share some of your family gatherings. Maybe you'll avoid awkward conversations because you can talk about how great Built Bars are. So there you go there. New surprises all month, limited time flavors arriving at Built.com regularly. Check out the site often. And remember, Built Bar Black Friday. Mark your calendar. Black Friday will be a huge event with all sorts of surprises. So right now, go to Built.com, use the promo code LOCK15, and you'll get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right, let's finish off talking about Marcus Semien. Now, Marcus Semien is an obvious name the Dodgers can go after if Corey Seager doesn't re-sign. He's a name that was linked to them a little bit last offseason. Nothing hard and concrete, but he was linked. They were interested. And he's a guy that honestly has really raised his stock of finishing third in MVP, having ridiculous year playing second base, won a Gold Glove, won a Silver Slugger, was an All-Star, finished third in MVP voting. He has two top three MVP seasons in the last three. And it's just a matter of how much it's going to cost, obviously. If Corey Seager leaves, it's very easy to slide Trey Turner over to short. If you sign Semien to a multi-year, 3-4 year deal, whatever, 3-4-5 year deal, theoretically, if Trey Turner leaves, you can slide Semien into short, although that would be 2 seasons at second base. So, you might have to work on him a little bit more. But Semien's a guy who's played 162 games this year, played 162 games in 2019, played 159 games in 2018, and played 53 out of 60 games in 2020. Now, the best, he's played 159 games in 2016 and 2015. 2017 was when he got hurt. He didn't play full season. So that's pretty consistent availability. The best ability is availability. That's pretty consistent availability. That's what he brings to it. Now, last year, not an anomaly, but 45 home runs, 102 RBIs. 2019, 33 home runs, 92 RBIs. He doesn't walk that much. He only had 66 walks last year. He does strike out a fair amount. He had 146 strikeouts last year, 873 OPS. He's a guy that he's value. He brings value, and I don't think he's going to cost as much as the other guys. And that's why it's a pretty decent thing. If I've seen Semien, I've seen him in the range of 115 to like 150 million 3 or 4 years. He's already 31 years old. That's hurting him a little bit, but that's not a bad deal if you can get him like that. He signed 18 million last year with the Blue Jays after turning down the qualifying offer. He's probably looking for 20 to 25 million a year. That's something the Dodgers can very easily do. You might not be completely sold on him because you can think of the seasons before, 2018. But even you go back to some of those seasons before, 2015 through 2018, and he wasn't quite the guy there. No MVP finishes, no All-Stars, none of that. But, I mean, he had a 162 game average of 19 home runs, 67 RBIs, and, batting average around 250, which OPS of 719, OPS plus of 97. So a little bit below average, but that was also 6 years ago. Now, if you want to go to the last 3 seasons, you take out those other years and you just go to the last 3 seasons. Now he has a 162 game average of 37 home runs, 93 RBIs, an 854 OPS, a 130 OPS plus with the batting average of 268. So now you're looking at a guy who is really, really good. And for 2025 mil, that's around what you would pay for. So yeah, I like Semien. He looks like a cool guy. He looks like a nice guy. He accepted last year and went to second base. And hey, look, now he's a Gold Glove second baseman. He was never really a Gold Glove shortstop or a Gold Glove caliber shortstop. So maybe second base suits him, or maybe just the way Toronto deployed him, or the way they shifted around. Whatever the case was, it worked. And he's a guy that would be a very, very, very strong backup plan should Corey Seager leave. Now, obviously, the Blue Jays want to keep him. They'll be after him. There'll be a few other teams after him. But this is one of those times where the Dodgers being richer than everybody else is good, and where the Dodgers, wanting to win more than everybody else is pretty good because theoretically they could pay more than anybody else. Now, I'm not saying they should. I'm not saying they should overbid, but if you're a guy like Marcus Semien at this point in time, yeah, go get your money because you haven't really had that big payday yet. But also, you know, you probably want to be on a team that's winning or in the postseason or that's fun to play on. You probably don't want to go and the where he's at, he's more suited for a team that's ready to contend right now because of his age. Now there's guys like even Correa, a couple years younger. Theoretically, a rebuilding team could sign him, and then they might get good as he progresses, kind of like the Padres did with Machado. Sign him to a big long term deal, and then they kind of got better, then they got worse. But they're theoretically supposed to be contending right now when he's still good, and on the long term deal, that's what you need. So yeah, it's an obvious fit for the Dodgers if they don't get Seeger back. But the guy that I honestly think they should really consider, right-handed bat, performed well in the postseason in 2020 for the A's. He's a guy that just brings value and can really help out. And it's a matter of, I don't think the last month or two sample of Gavin Lux should force you into thinking Gavin Lux is an everyday player. I'm not saying Gavin Lux is not an everyday player, but Marcus Semien and Trey Turner up the middle is a lot stronger than Trey Turner and Gavin Lux up the middle. Now, if you go sign Chris Taylor and it probably costs a little more than you think, maybe that takes you out of the running for somebody like this. But realistically, you would think that they were going to pay Seeger and Taylor, so that to pay Taylor and Semien, it would probably be cheaper and would produce similar value, at least in the short term. Now, maybe not in the long term, because like I said, Semien probably won't sign a deal longer than 5 years. But you also, like I said, and you also have a backup contingent plan on shortstop in case you can't sign Trey Turner long term. So it all kind of works out. And realistically, I want Seeger back. But if not, I would very, very much like this as the consolation prize for that happening. So yeah, supposedly him and Semien and Seeger were going to sign before the December 1st CBA deadline. It's been very slow moving, and then now we got Thanksgiving. I don't know if things are going to move any faster with the holiday week, but we'll be here if they do, and we'll be here to break it down if anything happens. That's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Make sure to make Locked On Dodgers your first listen every day. We're here every weekday morning for you. We'll just have some general Dodger talk coming up this week. We might have a guest. I'm not sure. Jeff's been working on it. But if not, we'll be here talking about the Dodgers, answering your questions, doing whatever we need to do to get you through this holiday week. Make your second listen of the day Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all gambling needs. Locked On Bets is hosted by your boy Q with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. Free and available wherever you get podcasts. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff is on Twitter at Snydog, and I'm at Vince Samperio. The DMs are open on all those accounts. You can also get a hold of us via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via text voicemail at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be with us when you get in your car or if you're at home. Tell your smart device play podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.